Joe, have you ever had one of those moments when you're just so frustrated with something and you feel like you need to tell someone, but you're not sure how to bring it up?
Oh, definitely. I think we've all been there at some point. It's like you need to address a problem, but you don't want to make it worse. Complaints can be tricky, especially when they're about something that's really bothering you.
Exactly. And I think it's even harder when you need to give feedback. Like, how do you do that without sounding like you're just being critical or harsh?
Yeah, giving feedback is like a fine art. You want to be helpful, but you also don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. And sometimes it's tough because feedback is often necessary, but the delivery is what makes it work.
Right. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. There's a real difference between a complaint and feedback. Complaints tend to come from a place of frustration, right?
Exactly. A complaint is usually about something that's gone wrong, and it's often emotionally charged. But feedback can be more objective and constructive. It's about helping the person improve, not just pointing out what went wrong.
That makes sense. And I think that's why we need to be careful with both complaints and feedback, because how we handle them can really impact relationships, whether it's at work, with friends, or even with family.
Definitely. Whether you're on the giving or receiving end, it's crucial to stay calm and focused. And most importantly, you need to approach the situation with a mindset of wanting to make things better, not just to vent or criticize.
Yeah, that's the key. We have to remember that how we communicate can either help resolve the issue or make it worse. So let's dive deeper into this. But first, I think we should introduce ourselves a little bit for anyone who might be new to our conversation.
Welcome to the English Pod, the place where we help you improve your English through real-life conversations.
Hi, I am Rumi. I'm an English learner, and I've been working on improving my communication skills, especially when it comes to giving feedback and handling complaints. I find it fascinating how communication shapes our relationships, and I always try to apply what I learned to both my personal and professional life.
And I'm Joe. I've been working in customer service for a while, so handling complaints and giving feedback is part of my daily routine. I've had a lot of experiences with both giving and receiving feedback, and I've learned a lot along the way. I'm excited to dive into today's topic and share some of what I've learned.
Today, we'll be talking about how to handle complaints and give feedback in a way that's both effective and respectful. Whether you're trying to give constructive criticism or respond to a complaint, it's important to know how to communicate in a way that leads to positive results.
Exactly. We'll talk about the differences between complaints and feedback and why knowing how to handle both can make a big difference in your relationships. We'll also share real-life experiences, role-play a common scenario, and give you some practical tips to help you improve your communication skills.
All right, let's jump in. First things first, what do you think is the biggest difference between a complaint and feedback?
So Rumi, now that we've introduced ourselves, let's really dive into this. What's your take on the biggest difference between a complaint and feedback?
I think the biggest difference is that complaints tend to focus on the negative. Something went wrong, and someone is upset about it. Feedback, though, is aimed at helping someone improve, pointing out areas that could be better while being more constructive.
I agree with that. Complaints are often driven by emotion. They're reactive, and the person just wants to express their frustration. Feedback, on the other hand, is more thoughtful. It's like you're taking a step back and analyzing what went wrong and then suggesting how to fix it.
Exactly. And it's funny because sometimes complaints can lead to feedback. For example, let's say a customer complains about a late delivery. Their complaint highlights an issue. But once you listen, you can offer feedback on how to improve delivery times or communication in the future.
That's a great point. Complaints often bring issues to the surface, and that's where feedback can come in. But sometimes giving feedback can be tricky, especially if the person is defensive or upset. Have you ever had to deal with a situation where the person receiving your feedback just wasn't hearing you?
Oh, definitely. There was one time when I was working on a group project and one of my teammates wasn't pulling their weight. It was frustrating, and I had to give them feedback. But when I approached them about it, they immediately got defensive, saying they were already doing their best. It was hard because I needed to address the issue without making it worse.
That's tough. People can be really sensitive about feedback, especially when they don't see their own shortcomings. I think one of the hardest things to do in those situations is to stay calm and not get pulled into the emotion of it. It's easy to get frustrated, but responding with empathy and understanding is key.
Yeah, exactly. I realized that instead of focusing on their actions, I needed to focus on how we could improve as a team. I approached it like, hey, we're all in this together, and I think we can work better if we make a few adjustments. That way, it wasn't about them failing. It was about us improving together.
That's a perfect example of how feedback should be framed. It's about collaboration, not confrontation. And I think when you approach feedback from that angle, it's much easier to get the other person on board.
Let's take this to the next level. I want to share a real-life example from my job in customer service. There was a time when a customer called in and was upset because their product wasn't working as expected. They were really frustrated, and I could tell they felt let down. I was worried about how to handle it because I didn't want to escalate their frustration further.
That sounds intense. How did you handle it?
I first started by listening, without interrupting. I let them explain what had happened, and I didn't jump in with solutions immediately. After they finished, I acknowledged their frustration. I said, I can understand why this would be frustrating, and I'm really sorry for the inconvenience you faced. Then I asked for more details about the issue.
So you made sure they felt heard first. That's such an important step. Sometimes people just want to know that their concerns matter before they're offered a solution.
Exactly. Once they felt heard, I was able to offer a solution. I explained how we could fix the issue and also gave them a few options for compensation. I made sure to reassure them that their experience was important to us, and we wanted to do everything we could to resolve it.
That sounds like a really thoughtful approach. I think a lot of times, customers or people with complaints just want to feel like their issue is being taken seriously. So in that situation, you handled both the complaint and feedback well, because you not only resolved the issue, but you also provided a way forward.
Exactly. It's about solving the problem while also making the person feel valued. When we listen, acknowledge, and provide solutions, it's easier to turn a complaint into an opportunity for improvement.
Okay, Joe, let me ask you this. What if the person you're giving feedback to doesn't seem to want it? What if they don't respond well to your suggestions?
That's a tough one. Sometimes, even with the best intentions, people just aren't ready to hear feedback. If I sense they're not open to it, I try to ease into it more gently. I'll start with something positive, like, hey, I really appreciate the effort you put in, and then follow up with the area for improvement. If they still seem resistant, I back off and try again later.
That's smart. It's all about reading the situation and knowing when to push and when to step back. I've noticed that sometimes it takes a little time for the person to process the feedback before they're ready to make changes.
Definitely. And in those cases, patience is key. Sometimes people need time to let the feedback sink in before they can act on it. If you push too hard, it can cause more tension, so it's important to gauge the moment.
What if the person keeps getting defensive and shuts down completely? How would you handle that?
That's when I try to move the conversation away from the personal side and focus on the issue at hand. I might say to something like, I can tell this is a sensitive topic, but my goal is just to help make things better. Let's focus on the problem and how we can fix it together. The more you can make it about collaboration, the less likely they are to feel like they're being attacked.
I really like that approach. It's all about making sure you know you're on the same team. It's not about pointing fingers, it's about finding a solution together.
All right, so after all these discussions, I think we can start to focus on some concrete tips for handling complaints and giving feedback effectively. Here are a few key things I've learned along the way. Listen first. Always let the person express themselves fully. You can't solve the problem until you understand exactly what it is. Acknowledge their feelings. Even if you don't agree with everything they're saying, acknowledge their frustration. Let them know you understand why they're upset. Be constructive, not critical.
When giving feedback, avoid making it about the person. Focus on the behavior or the action that can be improved, not on their character. Offer solutions. Complaints and feedback shouldn't just highlight problems, they should also focus on solutions. Offer ways to resolve the issue or improve things moving forward. Stay calm and patient. Whether you're giving feedback or handling a complaint, keep your cool. If the other person is upset, your calmness will help defuse the situation.
Those are fantastic tips, Joe. I would also add one more thing. Be open to receiving feedback yourself. Sometimes in giving feedback, we forget that we also need to be open to hearing what others have to say about us. It's all about creating an open and respectful dialogue.
I couldn't agree more. Feedback is a two-way street, and being open to it makes you a better communicator in the long run.
Exactly. Well, this has been a great conversation. I feel like we've really explored some useful ways to handle complaints and give feedback effectively.
Agreed. Hopefully, our conversation today helps everyone approach feedback and complaints with a little more confidence and a lot more understanding. All right, Rumi. Now let's dive into a role-playing scenario. I think this is a great way to show how to handle complaints and give feedback in real life. What do you think?
I'm all for it. Sometimes it's easier to understand the theory behind complaints and feedback, but applying it in real situations can be tricky. So I think role-playing will really help.
Exactly. Let's set the stage. I'll play the role of an unhappy customer, and you'll be the person handling the complaint. We'll take it step by step, and you can see how I handle the situation, and then we can discuss what went well and what could be improved.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
I've been waiting for over a week for this package, and it's still not here. I've tried calling multiple times, but no one's been able to give me a clear answer. This is ridiculous.
I'm so sorry to hear about the delay, Joe. I completely understand your frustration. Waiting for an important package and not getting the information you need is really frustrating. I'm here to help, though, and I'll do everything I can to resolve this for you. Could you please give me the order number so I can take a look at the status for you?
I just can't believe it's taking this long. I'm not getting any answers, and I feel like I've been completely ignored.
I hear you, Joe, and I'm really sorry that you've had to go through this. It's definitely not the experience we want for our customers. I'll make sure to investigate it right away, and I'll keep you updated with any new information. I'll also escalate this to the shipping department to make sure we prevent this from happening again in the future. Does that sound good?
I appreciate you listening, but I really just want my package. I don't want to keep going through this every time I order something from here.
I completely understand, Joe. We want you to have a smooth experience with every order, and I will personally follow up with you to make sure this is sorted out. I'll arrange for expedited shipping for the next item you order at no additional charge to make up for the inconvenience. Again, I really appreciate your patience, and we're going to get this fixed.
All right. I appreciate that. I'll wait for the follow-up.
Thank you for your understanding, Joe. I'll make sure you're updated, and we'll get this issue resolved as soon as possible. If you have any other questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out.
So, Joe, how did I do? Did I handle your complaint well?
Honestly, I think you did a great job. You started by listening without interrupting, which made me feel like my frustration was being heard. You acknowledged the problem and empathized with me, which helped me feel understood. Then, instead of just apologizing, you offered a solution. I really appreciated that.
Thanks. I think the key here is not just addressing the issue, but also taking responsibility for resolving it. Even if it wasn't directly my fault, I wanted to show that I cared about making things right. How did you feel when I mentioned escalating the issue?
That made a big difference. It showed me that you were taking my complaint seriously. It wasn't just about fixing the immediate issue. It was about preventing future problems. That helped me trust that it wouldn't happen again.
Exactly. That's a big part of feedback, too. Offering a solution that shows the person you're talking to that you care about making things better, not just solving the immediate problem. So I think this is a great example of how feedback and complaints should go hand in hand.
Now, let's flip the script. This time, I'll be the one giving feedback. Let's pretend you're a colleague and I need to give you some feedback about a report you just submitted.
You're eager to hear my thoughts on it, and I want to make sure my feedback is constructive and helpful.
Got it. I'll be ready to hear your feedback. Let's do it.
Hey, Rumi, first of all, I just want to say that I really appreciate all the effort you put into this report. It's clear you've spent a lot of time on it, and there are some great insights in there. I think the data you gathered is really helpful, especially the analysis of customer trends.
Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate that. What do you think about the overall structure?
The structure is definitely solid, but I think there's room for improvement in how the recommendations are laid out. Right now, they're a bit buried in the middle of the report, and they don't stand out as much as they could. I think if we brought those to the forefront, it would make the report even stronger and help our readers focus on the actionable points.
Okay, I see what you mean. But I thought I had already highlighted them in the conclusion. Do you think that's not enough?
I totally see where you're coming from, and I can see why you thought the conclusion would be the place to emphasize the recommendations. It's just that sometimes readers skim through conclusions, so it might help if we highlighted them a bit more earlier in the document, perhaps in the executive summary. That way, the main points are clear from the start.
I see what you mean now. That sounds like a good idea. It might help make the report more impactful.
Exactly. I think the report's already really strong, and just this small change could take it to the next level. I'm confident it'll make a big difference.
Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate the constructive feedback. I'll make those changes.
So, Rumi, how did I do? Did I give you feedback in a way that felt helpful?
Yes, absolutely. The way you started with positive feedback really set the tone for the conversation. It made me feel like you appreciated my work, which made it easier to hear your suggestions. I also liked how you focused on the improvement rather than just pointing out what was wrong.
Thanks. That's something I always try to do. Give positive reinforcement first. It helps to make the feedback feel more like a conversation than a critique. And when I suggest improvements, I try to be specific and actionable, so it's clear what the next steps are.
Definitely. And I think one of the most important things you did was stay calm and open. Even when I felt a little defensive, you didn't push back. You just kept explaining things in a way that helped me understand your point. That's so important when giving feedback.
I'm glad you felt that way. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the emotion of giving feedback, especially if the other person is defensive. But if you stay calm and clear, it makes the conversation a lot more productive.
Yeah, and I think another key takeaway is the way you framed the feedback as a chance to improve. It wasn't about saying my work was bad, it was about how I could make it better. That shift in perspective is huge.
Exactly. And it's about making sure that feedback feels like a partnership, not a judgment. We're working together to make something better, not pointing out flaws just for the sake of pointing them out. All right, so after all this role play and discussion, here are a few tips that I'd recommend for giving feedback effectively. Start with positive feedback. Always begin with something positive. It helps soften the conversation and makes the person more receptive to constructive criticism. Be specific. When giving feedback, be clear about what needs to improve and provide actionable suggestions for how to make that improvement. Focus on the issue, not the person. Always keep the feedback focused on the work or behavior, not the person. This helps to avoid making the person feel like they're being personally criticized. Stay calm and receptive. Whether you're giving or receiving feedback, it's important to stay calm and listen actively. Reacting defensively only creates more tension. Collaborate on solutions. When giving feedback, focus on working together to find a solution. It's about creating positive change, not just pointing out what's wrong.
Wow, Joe, this has been such a great conversation. We've really covered a lot, haven't we?
Absolutely. From understanding the difference between complaints and feedback to role-playing some real-life scenarios, we've touched on so many key points. But I think it's time to wrap things up and highlight the most important takeaways.
For sure. So let's start with a quick summary. Throughout our conversation, we've talked about how complaints and feedback are closely related but distinct. Complaints are often emotionally driven and focus on what went wrong, while feedback is more about offering constructive suggestions for improvement.
Right. And the key difference is that complaints tend to focus on dissatisfaction, whereas feedback is more focused on finding solutions and helping someone improve. But they don't always exist in isolation. A complaint can provide the opportunity to give feedback, especially when we focus on how to fix the issue.
Exactly. And one of the most important things we've learned is that communication is the key to handling complaints and giving feedback effectively. Whether you're on the receiving or giving end, it's all about staying calm, being empathetic, and offering constructive solutions.
That's right. And when giving feedback, it's essential to make sure it's specific, actionable, and framed in a way that encourages growth. We also need to remember to start with positive reinforcement so the person receiving feedback feels motivated rather than discouraged.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, when dealing with a complaint, it's essential to listen actively, acknowledge the person's frustration, and offer a solution. It's about showing that you care about resolving the issue and improving the situation.
One thing I think we can both agree on is that handling complaints and feedback doesn't just improve communication, it also builds trust and strengthens relationships. If you handle these situations well, it can turn a negative experience into something positive and long-lasting.
And I think that's such an important point. Whether it's in a personal or professional setting, how we handle complaints and feedback can really shape the way we're perceived. People appreciate when you take the time to listen and offer thoughtful, helpful feedback instead of just reacting emotionally or defensively.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with some final tips for handling complaints and giving feedback effectively. Listen without interrupting. When someone is complaining, let them express their frustration fully. Don't interrupt or try to solve the problem before they've had a chance to explain everything. Active listening builds trust. Acknowledge the other person's feelings. Whether it's a complaint or feedback, acknowledge the other person's emotions. Empathize with them and let them know you understand how they feel. This helps defuse negative emotions and sets a positive tone for the conversation. Stay solution-focused. Complaints should lead to solutions, and feedback should always be constructive. Focus on what can be done to improve things in the future rather than just pointing out the negatives. Be clear and specific. When giving feedback, avoid vague statements. Instead, be specific about what went wrong and how to improve. This will help the other person understand exactly what needs to change. Maintain a calm and respectful tone. Whether you're giving feedback or handling a complaint, your tone can make a huge difference. Stay calm and respectful, even if the other person is upset. This will help keep the conversation productive. Be open to receiving feedback. One of the best ways to improve your communication is to be open to receiving feedback yourself. When others give you constructive criticism, listen carefully and use it to improve. Follow up. After a complaint or feedback session, make sure to follow up. Whether it's checking in to see if the issue is resolved or asking if the feedback was helpful, following up shows that you care about the outcome and that you're committed to improvement.
Those are fantastic tips, Joe. And I'd also add, remember to approach these situations with the mindset that everyone can improve. Whether it's giving feedback or receiving it, we're all constantly learning and growing. So let's be patient with ourselves and others.
Absolutely. Giving and receiving feedback is all about growth, personal growth and professional growth. When we approach it with an open mind and a positive attitude, it becomes a tool for progress, not something to be afraid of.
I couldn't agree more. So I think we've covered everything we set out to today. From handling complaints to giving feedback effectively, we've learned that communication is the key, and how we approach these conversations can really make the difference in our relationships.
That's right. If we can handle complaints with empathy and give feedback with clarity and respect, we can turn challenging situations into opportunities to improve and strengthen our connections with others.
Exactly. So, to everyone listening, we hope this conversation has been helpful. Remember, whether it's a complaint or feedback, it's all about understanding, collaborating, and growing together.
Well said, Rumi. Thanks for joining me today. I hope everyone listening walks away with some valuable tools for handling complaints and giving feedback effectively. Let's keep working on our communication skills every day.
Thanks so much, Joe. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We hope this conversation has given you some practical tips to apply in your own life. Take care, and until next time.